A sea of tributes outside Anfield and a constant stream of mourners. Near the main stand, scarves draped delicately over the branches of trees, and then football shirts, red, white, gold, blue, like an enormous blanket of love, and bouquets of flowers, balloons, cards and mementos. Thousands of emotional messages from Liverpool and beyond, all for Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva, taken so suddenly and so tragically from us last week. They will never be forgotten, and their families will never walk alone. Welcome to Anfield. Let me just read words that are written just inside the tunnel behind us here. It's not simply a song. The words say so much about us as a club overcoming the adversity, holding our heads up high and facing the toughest of challenges and supporting each other to walk through the storm. These lyrics bind us together and capture the spirit of this football club. And with us on this special show, Phil Thompson, Bill Bygroves, Paul Gorst and Neil Atkinson. Thank you for joining us, gents, in what is a tough time for all of you. It's a really tough song to hear again, Tomo, and never did we think we would hear it in quite the context we're in today.
Yeah, for one of the players, and somebody so young, but never walk alone. The words are, Pete, you're quite right. When you think, we've always thought it as our anthem, something that we behold, something that we sing before a football game, but the words mean so much more, and we attributed them to, Hillsborough. I went to 9 funerals and it was "You'll Never Walk Alone," and it sticks in your mind. But you do your search even further than that, and you look at what it means. You'll never walk alone, and it's so much. And for Diogo and Andre, it is a fitting tribute when you hear that song being sung for them, and it is to show that we still care.
Yeah. Paul, Liverpool fan, first and foremost here, how difficult a weekend has it been for you?
Incredible. Seeing all the players over in Portugal, like Tomo says there about "you never walk alone," that's exactly what it means. His teammates have all been stricken with grief, and we saw the outpouring of emotion sort of filtering onto social media, didn't we, on Thursday, and that has continued right through, and just seeing the images that have been coming through to us from Saturday from the service in Gondomar, it's just heartbreakingly tragic. But I think, like Phil says, the fact that the players have been there, the teammates have been there to pay the respects on behalf of the club as a whole, it just shows what a tight-knit group they were and they are, and they will have to rally round each other now and somehow try and get past this and move on, and always remember Diogo the way they've tried to over the last few days.
Neil, on one of your podcasts this week, you very articulately said that this won't be for everybody. Some people still can't watch the news, people still can't listen to things and read things, and I think you made that decision quite soon after the tragic news that you wouldn't go on the air straight away, and you waited till the next day till everybody could speak.
Yeah, I think the first thing to sort of say here is that whilst our sadness and the sadness that you can see behind you is exceptionally deep, there is at the heart of this an unbelievable family tragedy. It's an enormous family tragedy, and we feel it keenly because we've been able and lucky to take Diogo into our part of our family. But for the mother and father of Diogo and Andre, for the entirety of, for both wives, children, for everyone else who's been caught up in this, it is unspeakably devastating. And I think it's important to make that acknowledgement first and foremost, but allow that time to sort of settle. Yes, this is a tragedy for the entirety of the football world, and that's been made crystal clear, but I just can't get past the idea that one day everything is fantastic, everything is sunny for a mother and father, and then the next day they wake up to the most unbearable conceivable news, and it's them who just remain first and foremost in my thoughts more than anyone else.
Bill, you're the club chaplain here. You offer so much support to people behind the scenes. How do you help them in moments like this? Because this is completely unprecedented. We have nothing to compare this to.
Yeah, the sudden and traumatic nature of the news that we heard took us all time to just even process, never mind empathise and sympathise with folk. And of course, grief is a process, and we've got to allow people time for that process. And of course, tears are involved in that. It's bad psychology and bad theology to bottle everything up. So there must be the outpouring of grief, and that takes time too. And allowing the family to grieve with dignity, and to allow the family to just begin that process is so vitally important. And incidentally, speaking about the fact that we sing You Never Walk Alone, that is an enormous comfort to so many, isn't it? We hear it sung as an anthem or as a battle cry on match day. But of course, at the Hillsborough services, we hear it sung as a prayer. A prayer. And people can identify and empathise and sympathise with folk going through such trauma.
What will be so unusual for people as well, Bill, is that for most watching this, they will never have met Diogo before. But this sense of grief, they've lost a member of their family too.
Yeah. And what you said at the beginning is so right. There's like a blanket of love here. And that shows the empathy and sympathy that is being displayed by our city and others beyond our city. Because, of course, in one way or another, we can all identify somehow with grief. But when it comes like this, so traumatic and devastating, it touches all of our hearts. And I think folk just want to show to the family how much we care and how much we love, and that they are in our thoughts and prayers continually.
How can you help people move forward in times like this?
Well, you do need time. That's important. You do need to shed tears. Tears are the safety valves of the heart when too much pressure is on them. They're like liquid prayers. They say things we haven't got the words for. And of course, treasuring memories, keeping and locking in your heart precious memories of folk, and allowing them to grieve in their own way, in their own time.
This book of condolence as well, people from all over the world, vast numbers of them have felt compelled to come forward and say in words what Diogo meant to them as well. There were queues for hours yesterday, and they will get the opportunity, hopefully most people who can, to come here and to sign, and people will do that online as well. How important is that in this grieving process for Liverpool fans?
It's allowing people to express their love for the family. And, you know, this club has had to deal with Heysel and had to deal with Hillsborough, and this city knows how to grieve and to express their oneness with the family at this time. is so vitally important.
You're so vitally important to this club now, Bill, as well, and I know you will continue to be for however long it takes. So we really appreciate your time in what is a really awful time for the club and for you as well.
Honestly, it's a privilege to be part of this club and to serve this club. And on behalf of our club, to the family, we wish to express our most sincere and deepest sympathy and condolences to you all, and promise you that you are and will remain in our thoughts and in our prayers. And remember the verse in the Bible that says, I will never leave you nor forsake you, which if you say it backwards is you forsake nor you leave, never will I. And when Diego sang that song, You Never Walk Alone, in front of the Kop on the last day of the season, I had the privilege of saying to the group of players before that, remember, when our hand is in his, we don't live alone, we don't die alone, we don't enter eternity alone. May that comfort your heart.
Thank you, Bill. We love you, mate. Thank you very much indeed. And as we've seen from the sea of flowers outside the main stand here, it swelled incredibly over the weekend. John Aldridge has left a tribute from Forever Reds, and he was with Becky a short time ago.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pete. I am joined by John Aldridge, who of course has come down to pay his own tribute to Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva, but also in your capacity as chairman as well of Forever Reds, the former Players Association. John, we find ourselves here in quite unimaginable circumstances. You know, we're looking out now on a sea of tributes to one of our most loved players, and a few days have passed now since we got that terrible news, and still I think it's complete shock, obviously devastation, just numbness as well.
It is. I'm still numb. All those words what you said, you just can't get your head around the enormity of what's happened. You know, and from the former players, we're absolutely smashed. We just can't believe what's happened to one of our players. You know, who's an hero. No, in many ways, and even us, we looked up to the team and you know, the capacity and the manner in which he passed away, and you're looking at his 3 kids and his wife, his mum and dad, and it just rips your heart apart.
It's endless sadness, isn't it? Incomprehensible grief. I mean, you obviously, as you say, came down to lay a tribute on behalf of Forever Reds. It's one of thousands of tributes that have been laid over the past few days, which, just looking out on them now, it really puts into perspective just how loved Diogo Jota was.
I think, you know, people are coming to obviously show the respect, but counselling themselves as well, because they feel they need to do something. That happened after Hillsborough, you know, when the pitch was a sea of red, which you remember, with flowers from all of the clubs as well, and that was so poignant. It was so special under the circumstances. But this and that, and you come to see it. And that's what supporters do, don't they?
Well, that's what I was going to say, because obviously, as you know all too well, this club, this city has seen its fair share of tragedy over the years, an unfair amount that this city has had to bear in this football club. But one thing we do know is that the fan base comes together in times
Absolutely.
like this.
Well, it shows you, doesn't it? You know, and you know, you look at the future, more for his family at the moment, don't you? You know, but and what the lads are going to, you know, my heart goes out to the lads. Wow, when they get together, it's going to be a massive shock, you know, for all of them, and I'm sure they'll move on in time. But for the present moment in time, you know, it's going to be really tough for them.
Yeah, to return to training this week, and as Mo Salah said himself, for Diogo not to be there is almost incomprehensible.
It is,
but
yeah.
then, I suppose, as you say, almost getting back into something that they know so well, playing football, is there maybe a cathartic nature to that in time, of course.
Yeah. You know, and he spoke so highly of Liverpool and his love of the city. It was meant to us all, and the one thing that, you know, it's the last 3-4 days, whatever it be, he's got a fantastic song that he sung, but you can't get out your head.
Yeah.
and it keeps on coming back because the song's in your head all the time, and you're thinking about it nearly 24 hours a day because the song keeps on coming back, and you're thinking, and it's an iconic song, and that's the respect that these people and Liverpool fans all over the world had for him.
And that song is going to be sung many, many times at Anfield and beyond this season. His memory will live on in the Kop forevermore.
Oh,
I'm sure of that.
100%.
Listen, you've spoke wonderfully.
Cheers,
thank you so much. Thank you. Pete, back to you.
Yeah, tough for Aldo earlier on, laying the flowers on behalf of all of the lads, and he's not emotional normally. It's really got to him this week.
Well, we know Aldo very, very well, and he likes nothing better than a laugh. He can turn things round very, very easily. But I could see there, just in that interview, his emotions are like all our emotions. But John's been there, as he spoke eloquently, about what happened at Hillsborough, how finding that strength to go on and to do things, because it will be difficult going back into that dressing room, because that's where Diogo sat. This is what he did. This is what he was first doing. This is what Diogo... They will all come back, which they have to be there for each other at any given moment. And it does have to go on. And that is why people, Bill speaking so well before, this has to be portrayed to the boys. There's no problem. There's no problem feeling emotional, feeling that grief, feeling if you want to shed a tear, we're there. He was a great, great friend. I was talking just before, and this is not footballers which people will think of who are paid so handsomely and everything. They're like a bunch of lads. They're like a bunch of mates in that dressing room. And he was one of them, and that's what will be greatly missed.
That was his first thought, Neil, for the lads. We forget all too often that they are a group of friends, that they are fantastic at football, but they're a group of friends that really love each other.
You can see that in all the testimonies that they chose to put out in the aftermath of the news breaking. They spoke very deliberately about, went out of the way to speak about the person and not about a moment on a football pitch, not about even at times his talent and his brilliance. Instead, he talks about the person that they hung around with, the person they spent time with, the person in Andy Robertson, and a couple of other cases they went to the Cheltenham Festival with, and that one was I thought, just so deeply affecting, because you could see in that picture, a picture that was probably never meant to be shared publicly. It was a private picture, but Andy chose to share it, and he chose to share it to illustrate what he meant, which is that this is just a really, really good friend of his, a really good friend, and a friend with whom he's had achieved unbelievable things, had unbelievable days, exceptional adventures. And also, if we all think about all of our workplaces, and I've come here today to LFC TV and seeing all of you who work together all the time, and it's a reminder, and you work with the players as well. But in all of our workplaces, we actually end up spending as much time in our working life with those people as we do with friends and family. And as and when it happens, you become friends, therefore, with the people that you work with and you're close to, and you build a bond on a football pitch, as Phil's been lucky to do in the past, and experience brilliant things, then it deepens that, and that shared connection is so much, it's so great, and it will take so much dealing with for those footballers. And the only way they can do it is together and with the support of all of us. That's the only way it works. That's the only way all of it works. The entirety of being a human in the moments of unbelievable loss is you have to find the way to be with one another and to support one another at those difficult times. And that's the onus that's on them now, but it's also the onus that's on all of us as well.
You will have interviewed him many times, Paul. I think everybody got a true insight as to what he was like from those tributes from his really close friends in the dressing room, and he had mischief about him. He would tell you if he was upset about something. He was I think Robbo said that he was probably the most British foreign player you could ever come across.
Yeah, it's just, that was him. He could have been from Wattenbreck Road. He loved his darts, his snooker, his horse racing, and
sounds like Didi, man.
yeah. The most. British non-Brit that there ever was, and that was him. He was very understated. He was very unassuming, and I know the dressing room used to take the mick out of him mercilessly, because he'd show up and he'd be wearing a pair of tracksuit bottoms, a pair of trainers, and everyone else would be decked out in all this expensive designer gear. But that was him. He was very modest, and I think that shone through on Saturday, actually. The very traditional sort of Catholic service that took place for him and his brother, and family was sort of very hard working and very traditional, and that was him, you know, and we saw that on the pitch as a player as well, didn't we? That was one of his great strengths, how hard he worked for the team. And yeah, it's just remarkable that we're here talking about it. Really, it's just so heartbreaking, and no more so than for his teammates who are sort of trying to navigate their way through this. Such a incredible period of grief.
That image of him singing his own song and swirling the scarf around his head's going to live with us forever, isn't it? The one crumb of comfort you take from all of this, Tomo, is that during those periods of celebration where he played this seismic role for us winning the Premier League and for his country a couple of weeks ago, the Nations League as well, that you probably do share these tender conversations with each other as teammates, and they will have shared those conversations in the last couple of weeks on the parade in the dressing room.
And it is, you have to look at it. I was trying to explain before what it's like, sort of being in a dressing room. People think it's highly paid footballers and everything, but they're so down to earth. It can be like a Sunday league sort of in the dressing room, winding each other up, taking a mickey. That's what life's like, and it's like that in a professional footballer's environment in that dressing room. So for him to be a great part of that and to enjoy the things that he has done, the Premier League, doing that and having that your own song, which is obviously people take to that. For you to be having that, you imagine his family back home there in Portugal, you feel that love, and it comes across with every time they sing that song. And for Diogo to sort of want to sing it himself, I find that quite amusing. But that's what players are like. We're all different, and that's what makes a good dressing room, and Diogo was a massive part of that.
Those songs and the players talk about, when they get their song for the first time, it's that rite of passage, isn't it? Acceptance and hero worship, they're so important to players.
Yeah, we spoke to Andy Robertson again back years ago, and one of the things he said was Virgil would like a song. Virgil would like a song, and he didn't have one, and it was about 2019, and he's got one now, and Diogo had his. For me, one of the looking back on social media, first and foremost, I saw his congratulations to Mark Williams for winning the World Snooker semi-final, which stood out, but also the video from the parade bus. The video from the parade bus, I thought, and the way in which, when you then saw the amalgamation of the videos of him speaking in a number of ways, how often he talked about the city and that idea of coming through the city and what that parade means and why it wasn't, but we all knew why it was important at the time. We all knew why it was important at the time because of where it had been lost in the past. But we also knew what it meant to those players, and that was what he grabbed from that day, that moment of coming down the Strand, seeing everyone and being overwhelmed by it. I think that also speaks volumes of the idea that he may well have felt that he'd found a sense of home, found a sense of belonging.
Neil, you wouldn't believe how the parades, we feel things at Anfield, but you expect that sort of thing.
Yeah, all
so any new players, and I've been both sides of it as a player and as a coach, assistant manager, to feel that's something special. And from the last time when we had the parade and Jürgen sitting on the edge of the bus, I don't know how he didn't fall off, by the way, but that bond and that realisation, this is for me. What I have done has been for you, and now you're giving back. It's just a tremendous sort of bond, I think, that can never be broken. I think those parades do more for the football club and more for an individual than what people realise.
And the players make that point as well. Their relationships with the fans change because you're crawling at 4 or 5 miles an hour on a bus, and you have no choice but to look into their eyes and see what the club means to them.
We had problems years ago because we didn't even have a toilet to go to, but now you can see what happens on them. Even Calvin Harris, for goodness sake, who's well renowned, he was just blown away. Yeah. These people, and Diogo, to feel that love and to have that bestowed upon him with his song, I think, and it is great to have that. I didn't have one, and to not have one, and that's why you're saying about Virgil, not having that, and then it's bestowed upon you, is a special moment. And Diogo, for the way he played the game, absolutely deserved his.
I think the people of this city saw a lot of themselves in Diogo. No ego, very understated, willingness to fight his corner, and in essence, he was a bit of an honorary scouser in that way. And I guess there's no sort of greater honour that you can have, really, from this city.
We were asking about your best moments for Diogo Jota before, and you picked this song, and you picked that moment at the end of the season, which will be forever in history now.
Yeah, just him singing it back, showed what it meant to him. It wasn't something that he was trying to listen to it, or was trying to catch the lyrics of what might be said. He knew exactly what the song was, knew of its origins, I'm sure, and meant a whole lot to him as much as it did to the people who were singing it. Just one of the many memorable moments from an incredible day and an incredible period for the club, really. Sort of from the Tottenham game right the way through to the Crystal Palace game. Just it's just a historic few weeks, wasn't it? And Diogo was right in the thick of it.
Iconic, that, Neil. Iconic moment.
It is. It's unbelievable, and it's also the fact that you can see him laughing about it, gets it in the spirit in which it's intended. And there's the fantastic photograph that, again, I'd never seen until all the tragic events of him with his wife, the 3 children, with his 2 parents, and with the Premier League trophy. And it's just a reminder that footballers, they have this network around them. I'm sure Andre felt the same thing from his mother and father as well, but they have this network around them of this support of people who got you there, people who support you. And on that massive day, to have shared that, again, it just sort of speaks to the depth of the human tragedy that we're talking about here. This family that has just been absolutely knocked aside completely by this. And that's, to think of that day and everything that day is now been and what it'll represent for them. There will be elements where at times it might feel a little bit bittersweet, but the most important thing is all of it that day, from everyone with the parade, it was all done with such love, such affection and such pride.
OK, boys, thank you for now. Let's get back to Becky, shall we?
Pete, I'm here with Olivia Hayes, who is one of the many, many thousands who have come down over the weekend to lay a tribute to Diogo Jota, but yours has struck a chord with many, many people, I think. Let's just bring in the camera and take a closer look now. It reads, if you can't see it there, how many times did we say, just bring Jota on, forever our number 20? Olivia, just tell us why you felt that was the right tribute for Diogo.
I think the loss that we're feeling as fans is nowhere near as comparable to the way his family and his friends must be feeling. But in the conversation that I've had with my family and friends over the last few days, it does feel like a big loss to the Liverpool community. And we were speaking about our memories inside the ground, big moments in the ground, but also times when you've maybe watched them away from home. And we've all just kind of been sat there willing him to come on, saying to each other, just bring Jota on, knowing he would bring that magic to the game and turn it around.
Oh, he was a game changer, wasn't he? And he didn't just score goals, but he scored so many important goals for this football club as well that really changed results.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking back to the Leicester game in 2021 when he turned the game around for us and then went on to score the winning penalty as well, and being in the ground for those special moments.
I think as well it was his personality as well as his goal scoring abilities, wasn't he? He was tenacious, wasn't he? And a player that I think the fan base just loved to see him get stuck in on the football pitch, and he was a real nuisance for defenders and endeared himself to the fan base so much.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've spoke about that, where he just loved Liverpool so much and got it so much. I think that's why it feels such a big loss to all the Liverpool fans, is that he really put 100% into the team, and that's all you can ask for as a Liverpool player.
Can I ask you for, you mentioned Leicester there, but you're overriding maybe some other memories of Diogo?
Yeah, so that game in the Champions League when against Atletico Madrid there just after COVID was one of the most special memories. I think it was one of the first Champions League games back at Anfield, after such a long time, and he came on and scored his first goal in front of all the fans at Anfield. So that is definitely a special memory for myself there.
To come down here, I was going to say, it is quite breathtaking really to look at all these tributes, and still everybody just numb with shock and grief, I think, but also taking solace from being here together and being able to grieve together.
Yeah, definitely. I think Liverpool's good at that, isn't it, coming together during these times. And I know people who haven't felt up to coming down yet, a little bit too emotional to come down, but just when you're here, there's a lovely sense of everyone coming together and talking and sharing stories about the amazing person and player he was.
Well, listen, you've been good enough to find your tribute amongst the sea of flowers here, but I'm going to let you put it back where it belongs now, Olivia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful sentiment, and we can't forget all of this because of what he gave on the pitch. The Liverpool public loved Diogo, his performances, the bravery, his goals. He had a special song that we've talked about as well, but he also had struggles with injury. He wasn't always first choice up front, but he never gave anything less than everything he had, did he?
Oh, it's for Diogo Jota. Wonderful, on a hat-trick, scores a hat-trick. Oh, given away awfully. And Diogo Jota for Liverpool. It's absolutely brilliant.
Robertson, nice ball. Jota takes it beautifully. Diogo Jota puts the top hat on this Merseyside derby.
That's nice. It's Alexander-Arnold for Diogo Jota, who's got himself a yard of space, maybe another yard of space. Oh, he squeezed it in! That's Thiago, that's stunning. It's Diogo Jota, and the shot, oh, it's in! Well, that's back towards Diogo Jota, who's inside the penalty area, and scores! Scenes the like of which only seem to happen at Anfield. Here's Diogo Jota, and oh, it's brilliant from Diogo Jota! Conor Bradley's gone and won the ball, and he's set off on quite the run. It's Diogo Jota, and it's still Diogo Jota who might go all the way, he does! The assassin, Diogo Jota, and you've got the perfect server in Costa Tsimikas. He's right underneath, oh, would you believe it? Here's Luis Diaz here, it's brilliant from Diogo Jota, yes! A moment of quality and a moment of class. It's Diogo Jota.
And we probably didn't realise how poignant that goal would be, the most Diogo Jota goal. If ever you could design what a goal from him looked like, it was that against Everton.
Absolutely, the low centre of gravity, the fact that he sees the opportunities there, sniffs it, and then even manages to send the goalkeeper the wrong way, all in one smooth movement. It is about as Diogo Jota as it possibly gets, but also because it was big. You look back at so many of Jota's goals, you know, there's one I want to talk about in a minute or two, but so many of his goals really counted. He wasn't one to score the fourth and fifth in a 5-0 or a 5-1. He was the man who would score the goal when you needed one. He was the man who would find the way through. He was the man who would break the deadlock, the man who would find a way through to get the equaliser. His goals were the big goals, and that's one of the reasons why I think that emotional bond that we've been talking about. Listen, we all know that goal scorers get that emotional bond more than anything else because we explode together, but so many of his goals counted in a big way. And especially in that 21-22 season.
And the noise that came with it, because he gave us so many unbelievable moments, Paul, didn't he? With our friends, our family. Yeah. This is why he's so loved.
Yeah, and I think, 8 minutes into his Premier League debut here with no supporters. I was on the few of it at that game covering it, and you know, it was a great finish in a victory over Arsenal, and then he really took flight, didn't he? It was 8 in the first 10 11 games. You know, you mentioned the hat-trick against Atalanta in the Champions League, and Neil's right, you know, look at his goals that he's just scored last season, you know, to help Liverpool win the title. It was the first goal of the Arnold era at Ipswich, you know, the equaliser of Fulham when Liverpool are already a man down, you know, the winner against Everton, the equaliser against Nottingham Forest.
That was huge, that goal.
Yeah, huge.
It was great when he came on.
It was first against second, I think, at the time, was it? Or maybe first against third. You know, like Neil says, important goals. You know, the thing I love about Diogo was he was never the main man. He didn't want to be the main man. You know, international level, he was happy to serve as Cristiano Ronaldo. He's happy to serve as Mo Salah here. But in his own right, he was one of the best, most outstanding goal scorers the club have had in decades. And yeah, his finishing prowess was second to none.
Do you know people don't give him credit for? With his aerial ability.
Yeah.
He was fantastic. His time in the air, because he wasn't one of the biggest. You remember Keegan, how good he was for such a small guy. Diogo was quite similar to him. He was always good getting those little flicks to sort of edge past people. But his ability, how many of those goals that we've just seen were quite like the other one, gliding past people. When you think of Diogo, you wouldn't think that he's gifted with these players, that he's got these silky skills. My goodness, when it was necessary, you looked at those goals and he was gliding past people no more better than the one against the Blues.
Just on that record you brought up there, he's in the top 8 for headed goals in the Premier League since he joined Liverpool.
There you go. I didn't know his stats, by the way.
But all kinds of different goals. He was the all-round striker, wasn't he? And you know, people compared him at times to Robbie Fowler, the way he finished things off.
Well, I think one of the things that he had that is similar to Fowler, and this can sound just all a bit. I think he hit the ball really heavy. The number of times he'd hit it hard and low, and it was like the goalkeeper couldn't do anything about it. Couldn't, even if he got a hand to it, it didn't matter. He turned it into like a cannonball that just rattled right the way through and hit the back of the net. And that was, you know, there's a number of the goals that you actually look at now. And for me, Jota was one who, he saw his job as, how do I just get this into that net? Forget the idea of it looking nice, forget the idea of it being unbelievably top corner or postage stamp or any of that nonsense. My job is to put the ball in there, and I'm going to do it as hard as humanly possible. Watch this. And that was the way you'd see him when he would cut through on so many occasions. And I think it is interesting, the fact that, you know, he's been around a moment of a lot of glorious Liverpool talent. But in the 21-22 season, especially that period when Salah and Mane went off to AFCON, he started every game, he carried the attacking load, he scored some great goals. And you think about that season, Liverpool end up 1 point away from a league title, 1 point away from a domestic treble, and it was Jota, whose attacking performance in the first 2/3 of that season, who carried Liverpool towards that. So many big goals and so many big moments. And to me, that's the period that, when I think of him as a player, that's the period that stands out the most, simply because Liverpool won because Diogo Jota scored.
And he did have his injuries, didn't he? We can't go away from that.
No.
How many goals would this guy have scored? Because he was, at times he was prolific. One of the things with Diogo was coming back from injuries. It always took him a little bit to get up to speed. So a fit Diogo Jota all the time, my goodness, how many goals he could have scored for us.
He enjoyed that physicality of the game as well, Paul, didn't he?
Yeah,
I used to say to him, you're like a throwback to when I grew up as a kid in the 90s. Used to love a little scrap with the centre-backs.
Yeah, I remember having a chat with Jamie Carragher, and he said that one of the things he'd like to sort of take out of Diogo's game was the fact that he always wanted to wrestle it, you know, the big centre-backs, but he couldn't, because he was absolutely tigerish. And we mentioned his work rate, and he just loved getting stuck in. And like Phil mentions there, not necessarily the most silky or, you know, easy on the eye at times when he got going, but he loved to have a battle, he loved to have a scrap, and he was an unbelievable finisher, you know, left foot, right foot, and like Phil mentions there, the headers. Just such a natural goal scorer, you know, inside the 18-yard box.
I'm just trying to look for his headed moments as well before. I think it was his left and right foot as well in his headers. It was 10+, which not many players have done in Premier League history. Since he signed for Liverpool, one of only 4 players in the Premier League to have scored 10+ goals with his right foot, his left foot and his head.
Because the job was to put the ball in the net.
Yeah.
Just put the ball in the net. It doesn't have to look nice. Put the ball in the net, and then the ground will explode as much in that moment as if you put it in the top corner. What he wanted to do was make sure that the ball got in the back of the net, and he'd do it the most direct way.
So what we're talking about here is an all-round player.
Yeah.
You know, it's you're talking left foot, right foot, headers. But it was that aggression that I loved about him. What he brought from Wolves to us, because when we signed him, it was, oh my goodness. Not many people would have said what a massive signing that was. But when you know and you looked at your football, this boy was a workaholic. This boy knew how to press. And you might think, well, doesn't everybody know that? No, it's not. It's when and how you do it. And he fitted in to Jurgen Klopp's philosophy like probably not a lot of players would do.
You remember him signing, don't you? You were getting out of the car
Do you
underneath
know what?
the channel, weren't you?
I was trying to explain this to people before. I'm just coming into LFC TV in the underground car park in Chapel Street. And I'm going in, it's September, I think it was, just coming towards the end. And I meet Neil Mellor in the car park downstairs, and I said, oh, I believe we're going after this place. He says, haven't you heard? We've just signed Diogo Jota from Wolves. I said, oh my goodness. For Sky, I'd been doing so many of the games, and he fits in to how we play. I said, he's the most perfect signing that we could have made. And it was that, and reliving that, and I hopefully Neil does remember it, probably doesn't, but it was a big moment that I remember about Diogo Jota.
Let's talk about moments then, Neil. Your favourite, you hinted at it before, it came from 2022.
Yeah, we play Arsenal a lot, and he scores a lot of goals against Arsenal, and the one that I suspect he and a lot of people watching would think would be the one in the League Cup game, but for me it wasn't. It was the one in the league game, and the reason why it was the one in the league game was, yes, the League Cup matters, but the goal he scores, Arsenal have been really good. It's the first sign of seeing the Arsenal that you see now at the Emirates. It was pouring down. This is an important detail. It was teeming down. The first 10 rows of our part of the stand, no one was in them apart from me and about 4 people, because I was like, well, you're wet enough, you may as well stay there. And we're desperate for a goal. They've just nearly scored up the other end through Odegaard. Alisson's made a really good save. We're desperate for a goal. We need something. City had dropped points on the Monday night against Palace. Liverpool win, they go 1 point behind Manchester City. And he's about to come off. It's literally his last kick. He's about to be substituted. He knows he's being substituted. And this ball gets played through to him by Thiago. And he's there. And this is one of the times I mean about him hitting it heavy.
Yeah.
You could say Ramsdale should do a bit better with it. It's at the near post, but it's partially the way he strikes it. He strikes it with such an emphatic strike in there, and it's an enormous goal under unbelievable pressure. Liverpool needed a goal, and if you go all the way through that season, that run, when Liverpool needed a goal, Diogo Jota supplied it. When Liverpool were under pressure, Diogo Jota alleviated that pressure. When Liverpool needs to go from 2-1 to 3-1, Diogo Jota sorted it out. He was, in that run, absolutely exceptional. Every single one of his goals was meaningful, and that one, to me, honestly, coming out of that ground that day in the teeming rain, just thinking we can win this league.
Yeah.
We'd been 12, 13, 14 points behind, and now it was 1 point. And we often don't think about the journey not taken. I understand the League Cup that season and why it means so much, because they got to lift the trophy. One thing breaks another way that last day of the season, and Liverpool have won that league. And I would argue if they'd have won that league, the most important attacker would have been Diogo Jota that season. That's how important he was, and that goal epitomised everything that he gave Liverpool that campaign.
Another stat for you here, Paul. In terms of minutes per goal, he's sixth on the all-time list for the club.
Yeah, he was brilliant, wasn't he? Like we say, you know, it was left foot, right foot heads, and I think one of the things that made him the all-round sort of forward he was because he wasn't the most naturally gifted who knew he was going to be a professional footballer from the age of 10, 12, 13. You know, he worked at it, he had to work at it. He didn't come from a major academy in Portugal. He worked his way up from Paços de Ferreira, and then eventually gets to Porto, and then Atletico Madrid, and then eventually moves to Europe with Wolves, who obviously got the huge Portuguese contingent, and he worked at it, and that is what made him the player he was, because it wasn't something that came straightforward to him. Like, you know, we always talk about Robbie Fowler in a sort of similar natural finisher. With Diogo, he worked at it, and that was what made him, you know, become the star he was, because of his work rate. And one of the things that was always sort of communicated to me was when Liverpool were trying to sign him, Pep Lijnders speaking to a lot of people in Portugal, you know, back at Porto, and, you know, glowing character references from everyone he spoke to, and it was almost like this guy's going to be a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Do you know what's amazing, isn't it? In the Mo Salah era, how many times over the years have we said our best finisher is Diogo Jota? And that's quite incredible for Mo's figures that he keeps sort of putting up there for everybody. And yet Diogo had that ability for everybody, not just here now. We're not just saying it, is that was on everybody's lips.
Also on everybody's lips, what a hard worker he was, and the manager's already described him, hasn't he, as a manager's dream, and we'll talk about that in a moment as well. But in the meantime, let's get back to Becky. She's with someone who's seen Diogo score home and away over the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. I am with Chloe Bloxham. Chloe from Red Men TV, of course. You came down at the weekend to pay your respects, and you've come back today, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, and somehow the memorial keeps getting bigger and bigger, and the outpouring of love gets bigger and bigger, and it shines brighter. So it's incredible to come here and look, and I'm not sure I can ever use the word beautiful in these scenarios, but it is really touching just to see the outpouring of love, and how much Diogo Jota affected so many lives in such a positive sense, that people feel a need to come here in whatever capacity and respectfully remember his life.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying off air, I don't think there is ever any comfort to be taken in a situation like this, but if there is a little shred of that to be had, it's that feeling of everyone coming down here together and grieving together. It's a fan base, of course, united in tragedy.
It is, and I think everyone comes down and you feel sombre, but then, you know, people wrap their arms around each other. And I remember coming down on Thursday and people just, who you've never met before, turn around and just start telling you about the great moments that Diogo Jota gave them, or the best goal, or what he was like as a person if they met him. And you just sit there and you reflect on what he was as a footballer and what he gave us as fans, but also you reflect on what a beautiful human being he was and how well spoken people are about him. And yeah, he was a footballer, and a brilliant footballer at that, and he wore the red shirt, but more than that, he was a father, a son, a brother, a husband, and And, you know, it's the human aspect that we are all mourning, as well as Diogo Jota, Liverpool's number 20.
Yeah, it's notable that most of the tributes, if not all, have been about Diogo Jota, the man, and the footballing side of things has definitely been secondary. But a lot of fans, of course, have not been fortunate enough to meet Diogo. You were, so just tell us about your memories of him.
Yeah, he was a beautiful soul, is the only way I can describe it. His smile lit up a room. He took his time out of his own day to come to that event. Didn't need to, he had no obligations, it was just the kind of character he was, and I was really nervous. He's the first Liverpool player that I was able to interview, and he put me so at ease. He had a little cheekiness about him, and he was so calm and easy to talk to. It was literally like chatting to a mate, and honestly it was the greatest honour of my professional career to sit down and have a conversation with him, and that memory will stay with me for the rest of my life. And yeah, he was just a beautiful soul, very cheeky, very smiley, very bubbly.
Incredibly humble and incredibly down to earth as well. That's the thing, isn't it? And when you spoke to him, a lot of the tributes have mentioned how he loved horse racing, he loved darts, he loved the snooker, and I think it was Andy Robertson who said he was the most British foreign player that he'd ever encountered, and he was someone who he felt like a perfect fit for Liverpool Football Club.
He did. I remember him coming in and him saying that basically I'm going to offer the minimum of what I can and to become a Liverpool player, and that is to give your absolute all for the badge and wear it with pride. And he did that. Every time he stepped on the football pitch, you could tell his determination, his passion for the badge, his passion to do well. You know, he fought for every part of his career, and you know, the great moments that he had at Liverpool, he earned every single one of them. But whilst being in the limelight, whilst not trying to be, he also kept his morals and who he was. He was so down to earth, so humble, and I was just so lucky that he was wearing the red of Liverpool.
I think almost impossible question to ask you, but you just said there all the incredible moments that he has. What stands out for you?
For me, I think it's Cop End, his goal against Spurs. Yeah. We were 3-0 up. I think Richarlison had just scored the equaliser, took his top off, and being an ex-Evertonian, it kind of hurt a little bit. And Diogo Jota was just coming back from injury. You could tell he wasn't 100% fit, and a ball falls to him on the edge of the box, and it's the only person you want in front of goal on that ball is Diogo Jota, and my word, what a finish. And whilst there's, you know, sheer euphoria around him from his teammates and an entire Anfield, he just calmly sat down with a controller and did his little celebration as if he hadn't affected 50,000 people inside the stadium. And I'll remember that mostly because I used to go to the game with my brother when I was a teenager, and he gave up his season ticket to move to Portugal, and every so often, if I can ever get him a ticket, I do, and that was one of the games I managed to get him a ticket. So Diogo Jota gave me that moment again with my brother of celebrating a goal and going absolutely incredible, and that's what it's about. He gave moments to people like that, where you just hold on to one each other and you bounce and you celebrate, because football is the least important of the most important, I guess. But in those 90 minutes, nothing else matters. And to be able for him to give us that moment and us to give him the song back after it, the rendition, that's pretty special.
Moments we will remember him for forever. Chloe, beautiful words. Thank you very much. Back to you, Pete.
Chloe Bloxham there with Becky Davis. So many brilliant memories, and we've been talking about our memories of him right throughout the show. Tomo, what's your standalone moment of Diogo Jota's?
Standalone moment. I did actually think of that Spurs goal, the one because of Richarlison celebrating like he'd grabbed something back for Spurs. So for him to score that, a couple of touches and in the back of the net, but my favourite has to be the Derby game this year. After what happened in the game at Goodison Park, for all what had gone on, I think that goal, and it was funny because you look at it, we were been talking about his ability, maybe not the most natural, but when you see this, what he does, he just loses a couple of players, most sensational finish. I was watching that goal, and I seen another one on social media, and I thought it was against that, but it was against Brighton during COVID. It was the same absolutely the same bit of skill. But this, because what it meant to us, because we were going for the title, we wanted it. The Blues, the supporters were loving every minute that it wasn't. And Diogo changed all that. You seen where Pickford's gone there? He's gone the other way, and he's pulled it down to Pickford's right-hand side. You just watch this. Touch, touch, touch. And now sends him the wrong way. Oh, joyous moment.
I think it's just completely this season makes Arsenal finally say this isn't for us now. I think up to that point there was still in the back of the mind you never know Liverpool could slip up. One of the games I'm sure they'll have had a big circle around will have been Merseyside derby at Anfield. A lot of pressure on it, you never know. And there was pressure. That's 60 minutes. Again, big goal. It's 60 minutes. We need the goal. And there he is, suddenly from nowhere, explodes into doing that. Pass two. Arrowing it into the bottom corner, and that's what he brought. And I think that is the moment where Arsenal, Arteta, rightly I hasten to add, goes, we're not catching these, this is all over by the shouting.
Yeah, that game comes after the March international break, and it's maybe a Wednesday night, I think.
Yep.
So Liverpool don't play the weekend, so they've had the best part of 3 weeks to try and get the Carabao Cup defeat out the system, the Champions League defeat, and they didn't play too well that night at all. And you know, at the time Liverpool still got an incredibly comfortable lead at the top, but maybe one or two were starting to be a little bit looking over the shoulder at Arsenal, like Neil says, and then Jota sticks that away, and all of a sudden it's just a release. And I think supporters could start to, start planning for the title procession.
Yeah. And many of the supporters who've been here today and here ever since that tragic news broke just feel as though they need to be here. There were thousands here yesterday, Tomo, and it's amazing how thousands of people can be completely silent, but they feel the need to come and lay the shirts, the scarves, whatever it is that they need to do.
When we're in the break and we're just looking round, and which you would do, you'd have a look. There's a constant of people there all the time, not too many, not too few, and they're all coming in silence. They're all walk past us here and they're all chatting away. And as they approach you, it's just in silence. They're taking it all in, they're feeling, they're giving their love for Diogo. But then they're sharing the great moments, seeing all the stuff that's happened. It is so much like Hillsborough, but this is for one person, and it's so tragically taken. And I always tell people, we love our football club. It's meant so much. It's given us some great memories, but there's nothing better than family. So him and his brother, and you just think, as Diogo's wife and the kids, the mum and dad, this should not happen. And that's why you feel so many people have come today just to sort of pay their respects and to show that bond that only our football club can actually do.
Our family will rally around now, Neil, as well, and Aldo was mentioning it earlier on, that the players will want to honour Diogo's memory as best they can now, as well, as tough as these next few months are going to be.
Yeah, I think we've got to allow ourselves, those to be guided by the players in terms of what they want to have happen when, and all of that aspect of it from our side. I think the players will want to honour the family, like you've said, honour Diogo and honour the family and support the family as well. But as has been said before, grief it's an odd thing. At some point they're going to have to sit in Anfield, and he's not going to be sat where he's normally sat. That's going to be before a match, probably before the match against Bilbao. And then it's going to happen again against Bournemouth. They're going to have to go through these processes of the first time without, over and over again. And I just think the best thing we can do is allow the footballers that space and grace. I want to be clear about this. I still expect Liverpool to be, defending a league title, because they were the best team in the country last season, and there's nothing to say that they can't continue to be the best team in the country. So I want to be really clear when I say that. But the flip side of this is it would be inhumane to expect them to be robots, to expect them not to feel, to expect them not to have a reaction. And also it's wrong to think they'll all have the same reaction. There'll be a desire to have that, and I'm sure the captain and the leadership group and the manager are doing everything they can to try to bring that about. But we even need to allow for the idea that there'll be some in there who may be more impacted or differently impacted than others. So listen, if there's one thing we should take from so much of this and much of what's come out, it's that footballers aren't machines. Footballers are people. Footballers are three-dimensional. And I think that the best thing we can do, not Phil, because Phil knows that, he's lived that reality, but what we can do as supporters and as people who talk about the game from afar is remember that in everything that we do and the way we go about it, and as supporters allow a bit of grace to these players right now. There's no more that they could ask, and that's what we've got to give them.
And in fairness, our club our club, we're talking about the players, but our club will know, and they will take stock, and they always seem to make right decisions, and like we've got to be guided by them as well.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. We appreciate it's been tough for you and for everybody that's been watching today, everybody associated with the club as well. The person who never sought popularity but found it anyway, in the words of Arne Slot, not a friend to two people, a friend to everyone, someone who made others just feel good about themselves by just being with them. But one thing is certain, we will never forget our number 20, our lad from Portugal. Rest in peace, Diogo, and look after each other. Bye-bye for now.
I started playing when I was 6. When you start, you just want to become this professional footballer and to play for your national team, to have the opportunity to play on the biggest stages with the biggest crowds. To feel those emotions, to feel how happy you are, constantly searching for these feelings. I remember my first football memories, the Euro 2004 that happened in Portugal. Everybody was so excited for the tournament. I just watched first time Cristiano Ronaldo starting in the national team. I always followed his career, and scoring goals always been my motivation. When I was a kid, I wanted to play in the Premier League. I didn't even imagine to win it. I just wanted to be there. I knew that it was the best league in the world. I fulfilled my dream when I played for Wolverhampton. But then, when you achieve a dream, you unlock another phase, another level, another step. And when I came to Liverpool, I knew that was possible. Really exciting moment for me, for my family. My job is to find a way to score goals, to provide assists. That's what they can expect from me, because now I'm one of them.
Diogo Jota on his debut.
From the moment I arrive, I always played a big part in the teams throughout the years with Klopp and with Arne.
That's nice. Diogo Jota, who's got himself a yard of space, maybe another yard of space. Oh, he squeezed it in! And it's a fine individual effort.
As a fan, I was a fan myself. You want to see a player fighting for the club, for the badge that they both love.
And now a back pass. Jota's away on the left. Jota! Anfield erupts! What a finish!
It's an unbelievable song that makes me proud. I think they know that with me they will have the minimum required to represent Liverpool.
Jota wins it back. Jota, great feet. Jota's in. Billionaire!
That's the feeling I look for when I play football. That's why you put all your lives and all your efforts to moments like that, moments where you can decide the game. It's what makes you keep going. To arrive at this season with the title that I've been chasing for a lot of years in the best league in the world, where I dreamt to play as a kid, and finally we did it. It's a moment that I will cherish forever. I always remember this city, this club. My 3 kids were born here. It changed my life completely. The way everybody supports me from the very first day. I'm really grateful to all of the people in the club and to all of the fans for making this happen. It is a remarkable achievement for a small guy that came from Gondomar, where I had this dream, and to ride this at moment, it was outstanding.